this has been the most flip-floppy past 3-4 weeks than I've seen in a while.
The Trent Baalke thing is wild.
I know. We're going to talk about it. This is good. This is fun. Welcome into Scoop City. I'm the athletic senior NFL insider, Dianna Russini.
And I'm Chase Daniel, played in the NFL for 14 years.
Well, we've made it to this part of the year. The regular season has wrapped up. It's all over. Regular season football, it's a wrap. It's time for the best time of the year, which is the playoffs. And unfortunately, maybe an interesting and curious time of year, and unfortunate in some situations, it is the week where we're seeing tons of coaches getting fired, coaches being retained. Just a really
that's the
busy
new thing
news
too.
cycle.
Not even the firing, because I've been around the league enough to be like, all right, you fire your head coaches, you put out a statement. Now guys are putting out statements that they're retaining coaches.
I know. I was going to ask you that.
Weird.
Yes. I was going to text you that. Do you remember when you were a player, if there were teams that were putting out a statement, yes, we like our coach, we are keeping him. Usually it's just assumed that you're not making that move until you make a move.
It just happened these last few years. I mean, I don't get it. Don't get me started. We'll get into it.
But blame insiders. Because it's probably us reaching out to people in the organization, and the organization's finally said, you know what, we don't want to deal with all of you gnats. We're just going to put out a statement. So we obviously have so much to get to here. We're going to definitely talk a lot about the coaching cycle, what we can expect, what's already happened a little bit, maybe a little bit of the backstories on each of these situations. And then, of course, we had great games over the weekend.
Yeah, it seems like an afterthought, doesn't it?
Right? It really does. And by the way, in between all these moves being made and, organizations sticking with their people, organizations moving on, there's news for some teams. So we've got an action-packed show. Let's just do this. Let's get right to it. Here's what I'm hearing around the league. Chase, I thought we would start with probably the most surprising firing in this cycle, which was the New England Patriots making that decision after 1 year to fire Jerod Mayo after going 4-13 this year. They make the decision and let the news out less than an hour after the game.
First coach, right?
First coach was, he was the first coach to get fired. We very rarely see that. Usually it's later in the evening, early Monday morning. So that tells you they knew this was coming. They knew they wanted to do this. And it tells you that they want to get a move on the interviews with these potential candidates, knowing that they've got the Jets, the Saints, the Bears out there working the phones, working the emails, trying to get in all the top dogs, the ones that are now employed by other teams, like we're seeing now, Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, obviously the gigantic names here that everyone wants to get interviews with them. So when you saw my news, when I put it out there, what was your thought?
I know I've been retweeting a bunch of your news because that's quite honestly how I get my news now. But that's the problem, Dianna. You don't really tell me before you tweet it out. You just tweet it out, and I got to find out with everyone else. I thought we had a relationship.
It was flying. It was going too fast.
I get it. You've been underwater these past 2 days, by the way, just for our viewers and our listeners. So I'm glad you're able to come up a little bit. There might be some news breaking while we're filming this. My first reaction when I heard Jerod Mayo got fired was shock. And I thought it was just absolutely ridiculous that they fired him. 4-13. You give him 1 year, and then you have the owner come out later that day and say, oh, it's all on me. Why'd you fire him? Like, teams nowadays are so impatient with quarterbacks, with coaches, sometimes with GMs. And so for me, I for sure thought, I know you've been like back and forth, and this is the name to watch, all this. I don't know. I felt like he deserved another year because, quite honestly, they didn't play their franchise quarterback until like halfway through the season. So you go into the season with Jacoby Brissett. You don't play the young guy. You don't give him a chance to develop as a head coach, and he comes into a really poor season. Like just surrounding. They didn't have all their guys, and it just screams two things to me on probably why they did it. And you can probably you will be able to tell us more than I can. But just from the outside looking in, one, they didn't like the plan that he had for Drake May, because Drake May is the franchise, and something went awry there. And two, you knew who you're going to hire, and that's, in my opinion, Mike Vrabel. Like, you're not doing this right after the game unless you already have somebody in mind. And so for me, when you look at those things, I'm like, all right, I can see it. I was shocked. I thought he deserved another chance.
Okay, so I know how you feel about it now, and I get it. And I think there's a lot of people, even those Patriots fans that have been frustrated with the way the year has gone, feel for Jerod Mayo not getting more of that time after really waiting his turn here and trying to learn how to be a head coach. But I listened to Robert Kraft's press conference, and a lot of stuff really stuck out to me outside of him just opening it up with, I take full accountability for it, and obviously taking all the blame for putting him in a position he wasn't ready for. And I thought that was interesting because he didn't put it on Jerod. That was him going, yeah, I miscalculated that. This person is not ready to do that job, and I may have pushed him along on that. Now, look, he's guilty of perhaps maybe not giving him enough support around that to continue that growth if that's what he was signed up for. Because I can tell you, the Patriots started this season knowing that there was going to be a learning curve, that there was going to be some bumps and bruises along the way. So it kept being explained to me, and even from just having conversations with people close to the Kraft family, that they knew this. They signed off on this. They signed up for this. They made this happen knowing, okay, this probably isn't going to be smooth, but we see enough good characteristics in him, so let's stick with him. And then
why do you bail so fast?
Because remember, it was 3 weeks ago on the show, I said, oh, Mayo will be safe as long as there's not some disaster or the engine falls out of the plane, like every example I used. And truthfully, I moved on from the story because I'm thinking they feel good about it. It's never going to be great. They know it's not great yet, but all right, they're invested in him. And then when you started to see the way they were losing and the body language and stuff I was hearing in the building, and there was a disconnect with some people, with some of the players and their coaches. When you start hearing that and the owner is seeing it and he's hearing it himself too, you can only sit there for so long and believe in it, what you're doing. Now, do I think that he's looking at the situation going, okay, I don't like this at all, but it certainly makes it easier knowing that the best version of what you're looking for is on the market. Like, I think if Mike Vrabel's not available, I'm not sure if Jerod Mayo's getting fired. I think Vrabel's sitting out there just taking interviews, able to meet with different teams, had the Kraft family thinking about, all right, maybe we can upgrade. And if that's what they wind up doing, if the Patriots wind up going, we messed up, this wasn't right, and they wind up going for what I think we can all agree is a much better coach, then I give them credit for owning it. Good for them.
But what happens if they don't get Vrabel?
That's the problem.
That's the thing, because Reaves has everyone and their mom wanting him to be a head coach. So it just gives Vrabel more leverage because that's the guy they want to hire, right?
It has to help in Vrabel's case in terms of where he wants to be. Okay, so I don't think it's a secret that he is open to working for the New England Patriots. He met with the New York Jets on Friday. We discussed some of the things he was looking for when Zach Rosenblatt came on the show after he did that great feature on him. He wants strong ownership. He wants a quarterback, right? Do those things line up with the Jets? No, right? So despite that, I heard the meeting was really good between both sides, really enjoyed their time together. Right? So he's going to wind up meeting with the Bears and the Saints still. The Patriots are going to
want to hire him.
The Patriots are going to be in there at some point. Here's my point. I think for right now, it can be uncomfortable for ownership, for Mayo, for that staff, and it stinks. It does. But it's competitive, and they want the best, and they must feel good that they could get a Ben Johnson, that they could get a Mike Vrabel if they felt the need to do this, you know? And Chase, this is the thing. Everyone keeps asking me of, where are these guys going to go? The Aaron Glenns and the Ben Johnsons and the Mike Vrabels. They all want the same thing. They want a quarterback.
Yeah,
and if Drake May was drafted in this upcoming draft, he'd go number 1 overall, no questions asked. Easily. Everyone agrees with that easily. I wrote about it this weekend about where would the upcoming quarterbacks fall. Cam and Shador,
Quinn
correct.
Ewers, they have to be like below everyone else.
So I asked about Cam Ward and Shador Sanders specifically to 3 different general managers, and with the exception of one who thought maybe Shador would go before Bo Nix. Most said after Bo Nix. And his reasoning was great. He said, I think he would go before Bo Nix because that team probably wouldn't have known what Sean Payton knows. Right? Like if it was the draft of last year, which I thought was really funny.
QB7 and QB8.
Correct. I said Sean Payton a text saying that. I was like, this is so funny.
That's pretty funny.
So look, I can't wait to revisit this story when it settles and we see who the head coach is. Because this could be something where, did they make an upgrade or not? Did they mess this whole thing up?
That's what I'm saying. Like, they aren't for certain and for sure going to get one of these top candidates. Like, I know, like, Robert Kraft and they have Drake May. There's still a lot of pieces not to like about that New England's Patriots team. I know you got the quarterback, but I still think they're a long way.
They've got a lot of money to spend. And they're going to be busy, this free agency. They have a top 4 pick. I don't know. Do you want to dive into this about how
Tackle.
if he did? No. I'm not asking what they should do. I'm saying if Robert Kraft knew that he was going to fire Mayo, and you have a chance to get the number 1 overall pick,
I get it. Yeah.
They were playing
No one
fine.
likes a tank. No one likes a tank.
That's
they put Joe Milton in, and Joe Milton balled. You know what I mean? It's
really
like, come on, like balled out. Like, come on.
My God. All right. So to put a bow on this, I think we're going to see this become the most coveted opening of all of them, including
what?
Chicago.
Whoa. You can't put a bow on it that quick. The most coveted opening.
I think this is the opening that the coaches that are trying to get in the mix all want. Drake May, lots of money to spend, good ownership. Boston's a darn good city. Outside of having to deal with Josh Allen and the Bills, they can win in that division. There's a lot of good
people
things.
like Drake May over Caleb Williams.
No, I think people like the New England Patriots organization in some instances over the Chicago Bears situation.
Interesting.
Right? So, and you heard Robert Kraft talk about how this new coach is going to come in and have say in the front office. I mean, Ben Johnson's like, let's go, right? Because he's going to be able to have.
Do you think there's a world where they go offense and Ben Johnson over Vrabel, or if Vrabel would want? I mean, if Vrabel takes it, would he be their first choice in your opinion?
I think it depends on who Vrabel's going to bring as his OC.
That's another thing. I mean, we'll get into it. I'm like, who's he gonna?
No, I love that you're saying we'll get into it later. We're gonna know very soon, I think, because he's gonna have to reveal it to all these teams, which the teams probably know behind the scenes.
They have to know. They have to know.
The Jets have to know. Yeah, you're right. All right, I'll dig on it. We'll find out next show. I'll come back with some answers for you. Doug Pederson is out after 3 seasons in Jacksonville. They also went 4-13 on the season. He went 22-29 over the last 3 years. That's his 42% win rate. That puts him as the 3rd best Jaguars coach in history, with at least 10 games coached behind Tom Coughlin and Jack Del Rio. GM Trent Baalke remains with the team. A very big surprise on that one.
That's crazy to me. Can you please explain to me why Trent Baalke is there, and Doug Pederson, a Super Bowl winning coach who's had 2 winning seasons for the Jacksonville Jaguars, is not.
Okay, so you're seeing the New York Jets have a search firm of Mike Tannenbaum and Rick Spielman to help them. And that's the New York Jets way of going, look, we need help. We want the right people to help us find what's next. A lot of owners don't want to depend on other people. They want to depend on people that they have these relationships with, that they feel that they can trust, that they're close to. And Trent Baalke works a lot of hours. He spends a lot of time in that building. He has a good relationship with ownership. And I think for them, they feel more secure in allowing at least one of those two stay in place to help with what would be next for this Jags team. But this is the problem with it. You talk about these coaches that want to stay in the front office. They want to be able to work with people they want to work with. You keep Trent there, doesn't become a very appealing spot anymore.
That's what I was saying, and that's what I'm thinking about the whole situation. Like, I guess I get it with Doug Pederson getting fired. For me, like, I have a unique perspective. I was with him for the first 3 years he was offensive coordinator, and for the first year he was a head coach. I know what he brings to the table. Could he have handled some media pressers differently? Sure. But for the most part, every guy I've ever been around, Doug's played the game. They like him. I get it. Your quarterback situation, you didn't fix it. You paid him a ton of money. He got hurt, whatever. But I would imagine that if you want to lure away big name guys in this hiring cycle, that they'd want to be paired with certain GMs that they feel comfortable with. And now you're going to a guy and you're going to pair yourself with a guy, Trent Baalke, who could easily be fired next year. And in what situation do you ever fire the GM and keep the head coach? Like, it's very rarely happens. And so to me, it's like their pool of candidates just went down to none.
I disagree. I feel like GMs survive. The joke in football is that a GM can last forever. Coaches are the first ones.
No, you misheard me. I said, in what world is a GM going to get fired and a head coach stay?
Oh, yes. So, okay, same page. Yeah, same page then. Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, it doesn't happen like that.
That is so true.
Ever. And so that's what I'm saying. You're going to come in and Trent Baalke, they have another horrible year. He's going to get fired, and the new head coach is going to get fired, be one and done. So therefore, the whole attractive situation with all these rookies and this quarterback that maybe can get it, it just doesn't. I don't know.
Well, owner Shad Khan was talking to the media, and they asked him if Trevor Lawrence is going to have a say in this next head coach. He says,
what'd they say?
I talk to all the players, not just Trevor, regularly. But let's be clear here. This isn't a second coming of Aaron Rodgers 2.0.
He's keeping it real about his quarterback. Oh, my.
What are you talking about? That's a shot at the Jets.
Well, yeah, but he's also keeping it real about his quarterback.
Well, I can tell you they are an organization that Trent Baalke may be there, but there are coaches that see that quarterback and the situation there and their roster, and they think they can win there. So we'll see with what direction they go in terms of, are they going to do the Chicago way and get the man of the people or the leader of men, or if they're going to go with more of the play caller type, like a Ben Johnson. We'll just see what direction they go in, because they are definitely going to have to make a lot of changes to the way they were doing things. Because, Chase, we were talking about them in the offseason. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I was talking about them in the offseason. I wasn't saying
nothing.
I thought that they were going to be good this year. And so the fact that we're here talking again.
Injuries hurt.
Yeah. So we'll see who they start to bring in as they begin that process. Look, I got to tell you, the Jets are the team that have been really buttoned up right now in terms of getting out the... I don't know, but I'm thinking about sending over a gift to them, like just maybe like pillows and blankets or something, because they might as well just sleep there and not go home, because they've got so many interviews to do, because they have this philosophy, I think, and this is a Mike Tannenbaum thing, where it's like, cast the wide net. Let's meet as many people as we can. Let's see what fits us. So that is a bit more of their approach. Whereas I'm seeing other teams going a little slower on this. And let me just remind those that are listening and watching that the league is really, I've been told this for weeks now, They're trying to slow down this process a bit. They're trying to so it's not taking over stories and time and airtime on what we should be focused on, which is the playoffs, and also to allow the process to unfold, so no one's rushing into these things.
Didn't stop the Patriots right away.
Speaking of the right person for the job, I think some people would debate whether or not the Bengals made the right decision if they got rid of the wrong person here, and that's parting ways with defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. They also moved on from a bunch of assistants today as well. And when you go through what Lou Anarumo has done with this Bengals team over the years, how many AFC championships, a Super Bowl visit, he's done a lot over his 6 years. He's proud of it. But I do think this is one of those situations where you're Zach Taylor, owner's looking at you going, what are we going to do? Because this is not good enough.
Yeah.
We have Joe Burrow.
There had to be some changes.
Right? So he becomes the fall guy in this. That's what it appears to be. Lou's not somebody I don't think anyone worries about, though. Lou's going to get another job somewhere down the line here. And
so I'm saying he's going to be another DC. I feel like he's a really good coach. It's just like you were saying, one of those things where it's, hey, we had the leading passer in the NFL. We had the Triple Crown winner. We had the league leader in sacks. And we're 9-8 and missed the playoffs. What's happening? And it's like, our defense wasn't good. Let's just fire Lou.
Now, look, credit to that defense. They started to surge towards the end. They started to figure it out a little. But look, sometimes in these scenarios, I think it's good for both parties. I think it's fine for everyone to go, you know what?
All right.
This doesn't work. And I also think when you're talented, you're not worried. You're good. He's been around the league for a while. He's really respected. I know there are a bunch of coaches right now who will be taking interviews, and Lou Anarumo will be on their staff as a defensive coordinator in these mock conversations that they're having about what it would look like. So no worries there. Zach Taylor's going to stay there in Cincinnati. So we will see who will replace him, because they had a hard time finding a defensive coordinator when Lou was hired. It wasn't the smoothest process. So we'll see how this goes this time. Then we've got the Browns. They fire offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey. The news leaked out on Sunday morning. They also let go of their offensive line coach, Andy Dickerson. I don't really think anyone was surprised by any of this. I do think it's interesting that Dorsey was only there 1 year.
You say no one was surprised. I was a little surprised because the quarterback that they were playing most of the year wasn't great, and then they didn't have an answer at the backup quarterback. And is it just one of those things where something has to give and the quarterback's going to be back, and so let's just fire the OC because,
I'm
3-year deal?
I don't know if this is necessarily fair to Cleveland. I'm just going to go based off what I saw in person in the summer. And I knew then it wasn't right. And if you're Kevin Stefanski and you're supposed to be the CEO and you're the offensive-minded person, and that's what the offense looked like this year, that something's got to give there. Something's not working behind the scenes, whether that's a personality, whether that's a philosophy, whether that's a culture thing. And I also think ownership is looking at the situation going, what are we doing here, guys? We are trying to make
the ownership
this
should look at a different
great.
Situation.
Yeah, right.
What are we doing? What are you talking
get off
about?
Dorsey and go to Deshaun.
Come on, man.
Yeah. So the other news that's coming out of Cleveland is that GM Andrew Berry said in a press conference that Deshaun Watson had a setback in his Achilles recovery. They don't have all the details yet, but they're going to extend that recovery process. It's too early to tell. Now, I can tell you that they have always planned on going for a quarterback in the upcoming draft. That's something that they've been focused on.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And adding a quarterback to that quarterback room is all part of the Cleveland Browns' plans. So whether or not Deshaun is healthy or not may not matter, because they may have a stud if they're able to get one.
Hold on. So they're going to bring Deshaun Watson back. Obviously, that's not new news. But then he has a setback, and now you're telling me they want to bring another guy in the quarterback room via draft or free agency or whatever.
Yeah, they got the
both.
number 2 pick in the draft, remember.
Which is wild. So they could have their pick between, if they decide they want to do that. If that's the case, if they draft a quarterback that high, is that quarterback going to start and have Deshaun Watson be the most expensive backup in NFL history?
Well, don't you think the possibility of that quarterback starting is probably high if Deshaun is injured, unless they bring in another veteran? Let's just, for this example, Jameis, right? You start Jameis, the rookie.
So we're thinking this setback's huge. He's not even going to. Deshaun won't be ready to play.
They don't know. Too early to tell is what they're saying. Huh. Who knows? But I'm actually painting the worst case scenario, right? Where I'm saying like, all right, Deshaun can't go. They're gonna have to roll out either the veteran or the rookie. It's just, I feel like it just keeps getting worse. They can't get out of this.
Yeah, and they're not going to be able to get out of it because they're paying them so much money. Worst contract in NFL history. We've said it before. My gosh.
You know how he just said in regards to Lou and the Bengals that sometimes you got to just go, you know what? This ain't working for us. I feel like these two just need to, and it's never going to happen. He's got too much money on the line. They're paying him so much money. He'd be an idiot to walk away from it.
Yeah, he ain't walking away from that.
No. All right, the Seahawks, they let go of OC Ryan Grubb. He was also fired after one season.
One and done.
Yeah, no one's got any patience. Seattle finished 10-7. They missed the playoffs in Mike McDonald's first season as a head coach. Mike McDonald is going to be a great coach. I think he's got all these ingredients that you're looking for in a first-year head coach. You know, you talk about owners trying to figure out, is this the right? Do they at least have that potential that you're saying? He's got it all. I've heard about this for years. And so there's just got to be growth. And obviously they think on offense this wasn't good enough.
It was an interesting hire to begin with, is all I'll say, because it came from college, right? And yeah, it'd be interesting to see who they get in there. And quite honestly, if Geno, like what they're going to do in the draft or free agency, if Geno going to be their guy still, like he played well. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
At this point in his career, I mean, Geno's not getting any younger.
Well, that's true. So we just spent the last 25, let's say, minutes, roughly, discussing. Wait, it wasn't 25. It was a lot more time than that. These are all the firings, and there could potentially be some more down the line. I do believe the story of the cycle, though, has been the teams that are retaining their head coaches and GMs. Why? What happened? What was the decisions? What direction are they going in? I think we got to get right back into that next. We'll be right back. So, Chase, since I'm the resident keep you up with all the hip things that people are doing these days, I know you always come to me on it. The hip things owners are now doing are just releasing statements that their GMs and head coaches are safe moving forward. And it's probably just a good way to put it all to bed so no one's wondering and questioning the way we're doing it with some teams now that we don't know their futures. So really the stories of these coaches and GMs returning are almost far more interesting than those that are getting fired. So let's start with the New York Giants, okay? You want to talk about flip-flop, 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 okay? And when I say flip-flop, 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 I mean this is a team that did not want to make any changes. John Mara came out in October and said it, right? We've talked about it a million times on the show. The vote of confidence / kiss of death. And it really turned out to be the kiss of death as the season went, because how could he not take back his words and make changes after the product that he was seeing on the field? But in the end, he sat with both these guys on a Friday before the last weekend of the season. They all spoke their minds and discussed what the future would look like. He slept on it. Made the decision on Monday morning that he would retain both Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen.
Didn't I say conspiracy theory about this like a couple weeks ago on our podcast when you were like, oh, the vote of confidence? I'm like, you didn't believe it? Because you're like, the vote of confidence in October is usually not the vote of confidence. Remember I said that I feel like they all got in a room and they all decided we're going to tank.
Then why didn't they do it last week?
And we're all on the same page. And we are going to focus all of our efforts on 2025 and getting a high pick, which they hold the 3rd overall pick, which is very much striking distance for a quarterback a la Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. Because let's be real. Entering their 4th season, they're returning for their 4th season. The number one thing that Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen have to hit out of the park home run style grand slam, they got to find a quarterback. And quite honestly, I do not care if it's a rookie. I do not care if it's a stud that they trade for and spend $50 million a year. I don't care. That will be the deciding factor, I think, when you look at next year this time, if they're back or not. It'll be yes because we found a quarterback. And let's be real, I think that Brian Daboll is a great coach. I really do. Like, he won a playoff game with Daniel Jones. But the quarterback issue there is the problem. Going to be fascinating offseason to watch these two try to get a quarterback.
I love all your ideas. I like all your theories. I don't think it's that intricate. I don't think it's that savvy. I think this is a story of an owner who just wanted to see this team have some success, and they couldn't do it. And then he wanted to continue believe that they could be successful and that this was the right regime. And he just wanted them to go out there and show that they could do it. And then they go out and win the game that they should have lost so they could get the number one overall pick.
Drew Lock, baby.
But I think that game in a way helped Daboll. I think that saved him, because here's the one thing I'll give him credit for. Those guys still play hard for him. In the locker room, they love him. He's very visible in the building. He's got good energy about him. And somehow Joe Schoen has figured out a way to sell to the owner that he knows how to pick talent and make these big decisions for the New York Giants, despite what we just saw. So you're right. This all comes down to the quarterback. But Chase, we both have been in this a long time. Most of the time when owners were tempted to move on, when they wanted to do it and then they didn't, they just do it the next year and say, why did I wait?
I know. That's why I said he has to get this right.
Even in his press conference, his vibe was like, I really wanted to do that. Like,
I feel like his vibe is always like that, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Yeah. That's why he's firing people all the time, because he's not getting it right. That's got to be so frustrating as an owner. You think you're giving these people everything they possibly need to be successful, and then you're allowing them to make those decisions. And he's a really present owner. He's in the building every day.
You're up there in the Northeast. What is the consensus with the Giants and Daboll and Schoen coming back of Giants fans?
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me? I'm surprised there's not cars on fire.
Even for Dabes, I feel like Dabes is great. Joe Schoen, I mean, just because it was, I bet they wish they didn't do Hard Knocks, man. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I know. A good friend of mine was like,
who's going to do that this year? I mean,
Joe Schoen's mistake wasn't trading away Saquon Barkley. It's because they let them video it.
100%.
I don't know. Saquon Barkley's pretty damn good. Last time I checked there, my friend. Let's get to the Colts. We know you've spoken on the show about your support for Chris Ballard, but I think you've been awesome about just being honest that it hasn't been good. And we talked about on the show last week about how, I knew that Shane Steichen was going to be safe. I wasn't so sure about Chris Ballard over the weekend. I wasn't. I'd heard a couple little things from different people, and I do think a lot of people around the league were just looking at their lack of success. And you have to figure ownership wanted to move in a new direction. But back to the point you made before, very rarely do you get rid of a GM and you keep that head coach in place. So what do you think?
Look, it's known that Ballard's my guy. He helped get me to Kansas City. But I was a little surprised, if I'm going to be honest. He's 10 years without winning a division title, 4 straight seasons, missing the playoffs, 62-69-1 in 8 seasons. It's going to come down. I mean, and it's crazy, but all these guys and coaches that are getting fired, they really don't have that franchise guy, that quarterback guy. It all comes down to getting a quarterback. And you look at the Anthony Richardson thing and that angle, it's like, do you give him another year? Do you fully move on? Do you go to the free agency market? They've done that before. Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, it didn't work out. You have to stick it with Anthony Richardson, and just hope that they can somehow build some confidence going into next year and sort of rebuild that locker room and that culture that's been talked about so much. But yeah, definitely a little bit of a surprise for me.
Yeah, at the end of the day, he went 8-9 this past season. Shane Steichen went 17-17 in the 2 seasons as a coach. Ballard overall 62-69-1 as 8 seasons. But they decide that he's their guy. They've got a lot of questions to answer in this offseason to try to figure out and sort through the direction they want to go in. And again, another example of usually when it's it's mucky like this, it's hard to clean up.
The next year, it's usually.
I know it's hard, and this is why I think this is interesting that so many owners decided to stick with what they know probably actually isn't working. They don't want to go through all the change. I mean, you're looking around the league now at the teams that are searching for the new head coaches, and it's a process. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of money. All right, moving on. Let's do the Dolphins. Okay, there was some buzz going on that they would make some change. I heard a little bit of it too a few weeks ago. But Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel, the GM and the head coach, they're going to remain with the team. And while that is okay, interesting, I wouldn't say it's alarming or shocking. To me, it's the reaction from players lately, not in regards to that news, but just what is going on in Miami. Tyreek Hill wants out. He says, I'm opening the door. I'm out, bro. It was great playing here, but at the end of the day, I got to do what's best for my career because I'm too much
so much. He goes, I'm out, bro. That's all that matters. Forget about every other read you said. He said, I'm out, bro.
I
was like, you really just said that on like an hour after the game? This has been building for a while, obviously.
Yeah. So we'll
Crazy,
see what happens. Jalen Ramsey's on Instagram posting about it. And here's the problem. That is a reflection of the culture there and how Mike McDaniel is running things. And look, they decided to extend him last year. They gave him a new contract. I think that helped him stay alive for another year here because he just got that new deal. But I think that.
But they made the playoffs last year, and I get they didn't win it. So what? I didn't even think this was like a question.
You were so sure that Mike would be back?
Dude, he didn't have Tua. When you don't have your starting quarterback, you suck. I'm not saying Tua's this end-all, like, be-all beater, but, like, he didn't have his guy. And I get there's always going to be disgruntled stars and people when you don't make the playoffs and season goes to crap. But let's be real. You could have Bill Belichick as a head coach there in the Dolphins and two superstar guys that could give two shits less about what they do or say in front of the media. They'd still put it out there. So for me, this does not mean that he's lost the team or lost the culture. It's two superstars that won out and that are pissed of losing. Like that's how I see it.
Yeah. Like 55 shows in with you, I've never heard you curse on our show. This is what got you? This is what got you?
Yeah, I mean, you can cut it, I guess. But I don't like to cuss, but like this just gets me hot. It's like, look, I'm not saying Mike McDaniel's perfect, but I just hate that there's this like, he took him to the playoffs. He got to the guys you drafted in the first round. They got him to be the best version of himself. And it was amazing. Got him $53 million or whatever it was. And so you have one losing season. You don't have Tua for a ton of the games because he's been hurt, concussed, all this stuff. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's Mike McDaniel's fault? Like, Mike McDaniel's fault? Like, no, it's not. Like, come on. Yeah. I know. I got a little hot there. Sorry.
Yeah, you did. I like it. So let's stay in their division. The New York Jets, we referenced already that they met with Ron Rivera, Mike Vrabel, and this interview request list. I spent my entire day on Monday, and I might as well just change my bio to just Jets because I was reporting all the requests that were going in, and I kept getting like these texts like blah, blah, blah to the Jets, Bobby Slowick, Jets, Joe Brady, Jets, Arthur Smith, Jets. I'm like, is anyone else putting requests in here?
They are casting a very wide net.
Yeah, it's a really long list. Bobby Slowick, Joe Brady, Arthur Smith, Brian Greasy. What'd you think of that one? I love that one. Brian Flores, Aaron Glenn, Anthony Lynn, Josh McCown, Mike Vrabel, Ron Rivera, Rex Ryan, Matt Nagy, Vance Joseph.
Hey, if Nagy gets that job, you might not have a podcast host next year. Just saying.
Let's go. Breaking news. Chase Daniel joining Matt Nagy's coaching staff. Would you give me scoop and interviews? Yeah, I hope so.
Absolutely not.
I like this. I think the Matt Nagy, part 2 story could be really interesting.
I do too. Look, I've talked to him at length, and I think he's definitely learned certain things about his first go round as a head coach. He came in, he completely changed the culture overnight. He won Coach of the Year with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, went 12-4. We should have went 14-2 in 2018. I think that he needs to learn how to keep that going, right? And not only change the culture of the players and the organization, but also can he continue that through his process? And so I think he's got a really good eye for quarterbacks in the draft. He was heavily involved in the Patrick Mahomes draft with Andy Reid when he was in KC. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And he's a guy who's been around Andy Reid and the winning so much and Patrick Mahomes so much. He is a culture guy. He doesn't have to necessarily call the plays offensively. You bring a guy in there. It'll be interesting to see if he gets another interview. But I wouldn't count him out.
Yeah. So he'll get an interview with the Jets. Like you said, we'll see if he'll make it to the second round. And the New Orleans Saints are expected to interview him as well. So he could be a pretty busy guy. But obviously that's not the story for the New York Jets. I do think the story is going to be, yeah, it's great that they're going to meet with all these different people, but who is really going to be the right one here, knowing they don't have a lot of answers at quarterback. Everyone is operating as if it's the Aaron Rodgers era is over. I think it'd be more surprised if he stays than if he left.
Although he looked good this year. I mean, like you look at Aaron Rodgers, 3,900 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks. The dude can still play. It's just, do you want the headache away from him? Bringing him in.
I agree. I don't think his playing days are over, though. I mean, he obviously has to make that decision himself, and he's going to waiver and tell us every other day. I don't even want to say his name because I don't feel like hearing him talk about me. But yes, I do.
Don't back down from him, Dianna. Don't you do that. You do your job.
I'm doing my job. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next, and hopefully it's playing some football because I agree with you. I do think he had some good stuff there. The Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Anthony Weaver, Brian Flores, Drew Petzing, Thomas Brown, right?
No Vrabel?
Mike Vrabel. Yep, he's on there.
Is he in there?
Yes, he is.
Okay, because I wasn't sure because that was.
I guess I didn't write his name down next to all these teams because it's just assumed at this point.
Yeah, that's so true.
So if I say a team, just know Vrabel's probably going to interview with them. Look, leader of men. This is all just going to come down to, in my opinion, probably what Mike Vrabel or Ben Johnson want.
I mean, if I'm the Bears, I'm giving anything and everything to Ben Johnson to make him the next head coach of the Chicago Bears.
I had someone I trust say to me, don't forget, there is a world where Ben Johnson decides to sit this cycle out too.
I guess. Don't give me.
He could do it again. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think the Bears have to figure out a way to sell themselves. They have to figure out what it is that Ben Johnson doesn't like about the Chicago Bears, what Mike Vrabel doesn't like about the Chicago Bears. I don't necessarily believe that the other candidates will be as picky because most of them are first time. Well, Ben Johnson's a first time head coach, but he's getting a lot more benefit of the doubt because he's this play calling wizard. I do like the Anthony Weaver name. So he's the Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator. He was with the Ravens for 3 years. Before that, he was with the Houston Texans. He's that typical, accountable, player-friendly, but tough type of coach. And he's more than just the defensive side of the ball. He was an assistant head coach with the Ravens. And he's just one of those coaches in the league that I've known for a long time, but just from covering him and talking to people just sing his praises. He's an energy multiplier. He's one of those.
Oh, I like that. I don't know much about him. Where do you think he would fit the best in all these openings?
I like him in Jacksonville. I think that's a place where I think build the culture. He's got a good quarterback.
I like it.
And then you've got the Saints, right? So it's still pretty early in their phase, which we're going to start seeing a lot more of these candidates get requests. But Aaron Glenn is a name. Mike Vrabel is a name.
Homegrown name. I would look at Aaron Glenn for that one. That's a Saints-like family close to their house. Joe Brady, Aaron Glenn, both had tenures. I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, finally, to wrap this up, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders. Antonio Pierce addressed the reporters. He didn't have any updates. He's assuming that he's the head coach. But at the end of the day, this comes down to owner Mark Davis. Tom Brady is going to have an influence in this. He has conversations with Mark Davis all the time. The belief has been that Antonio Pierce is going to be out And then this thing shifted recently where it was like, you know what? We need to stick with what we've got here. There's some good pieces here. The players want them. I don't necessarily think the players were as loud as they were last year.
Yeah. Why is it shifted? Because they didn't do much this year.
Yeah, how do you stand on that?
What on the field product? I mean, my thing is like the first thing I saw was like, oh, they let him talk to the media, must be safe. But then I'm like, oh, maybe Brady hasn't weighed in because he just got done calling a Fox NFL game. Like truly where my mind went. Yeah, like truly, like and I know Antonio Pierce has one more year left. I mean, I think they need to move on. But I mean, I like former players as head coaches. You didn't get the OC right, like in my opinion. You didn't get a quarterback. And I know he wanted a quarterback. And that's what it's going to come. I mean, you can talk, Chase, you're crazy because all you see is you got to have a good quarterback to win.
No, I've had these conversations over the years with coaches, weighing different opportunities, and you'd be surprised how many places can really sell themselves. The teams that don't have these quarterbacks, because they have to oversell, they have to overcourt you. But at the end of the day, look who's playing in the playoffs. Anyone in the playoffs right now that doesn't have a quarterback? Anyone? No.
2 rookies, too.
Right? Thanks for tuning into Scoop City. If you want to hear more, make sure you like and subscribe. We drop our new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.